Welcome everybody to today, where we celebrate the third Monday of Advent reflection. And today is December 15th, 2025. And so if we reflect upon this week's theme, notice that the pink candle is lit up. And what does the pink candle symbolize? It symbolizes the rose. But it also symbolizes the joy. And I had listened to the homily from the bishop yesterday, and he gave us this great way of how each and every one of us can live forth a joyful life. And so what are the ways that we can live a joyful life? Well, if we were to spell out the word joy, we know that every letter represents an acronym. And so the first letter, which is J, stands for Jesus. And then the second letter, which is O, stands for others. And then the third letter, which is Y, stands for you. And so each and every one of us are to prioritize Jesus first before prioritizing the others, and then prioritizing others before we prioritizing ourselves. Each and every one of us here are living a different life, to which we all have different missions to which we accomplish in order for us to be able to come to Him. But we got to realize that God is the one that gave us this life. Therefore, we should try to prioritize Jesus in our lives. Why is that? Because Jesus has done so much for each and every one of us that He wants us to be able to come to Him. And once we come to Him, that is when we are able to love other people just as ourselves. And when we love others, we have to strive to continue to offer our life towards one another. And then finally, we prioritize ourselves. So why this order, you may ask? Because all of us should come to realize that we should live our life for God. We don't live our life for ourselves. So each and every one of us here should take into consideration how much God had loved each and every one of us, how others had provided support in order for us to be able to get to where we are today. So each and every one of us are reminded and called to continue to love one another, because Jesus had given us a lot in our life. Then it comes to other people who have granted us all of these things to which we wouldn't be able to have it if it weren't for others. And then finally, we then prioritize ourselves. And so, looking upon today's Holy Gospel, notice that Jesus had asked the Pharisees and the scribes this question, but before that, the Pharisees, after Jesus was teaching in the temple, they asked Jesus, to whom do you have the authority to execute all of these things? And who had told you to do that? That's what the Pharisees and the scribes had really asked Jesus. And how did Jesus respond in today's Holy Gospel? He had mentioned, before I answer this question, let me ask you guys this question, and then He will answer to whom the authority is given to Him. And so what was the question that Jesus had asked? You may wonder. Jesus had asked the Pharisees and scribes, where did John's baptism come from? Was it of heavenly origin, or was it of human origin? Notice that they had to choose between two options. And these two options, they had to really think about what in the world they are trying to say. Because if they answered the heavenly origin, then knowing what Jesus is going to respond, they are to think, then why don't you believe? But if it's earthly response, then then they are going to fear all of the people. So they try to find a short way out by saying they don't know. And so what is the result of this? Jesus had answered, "Neither will I answer the question of to whom the authority is from." And so what can we learn from today's Holy Gospel? All of us are being challenged of our faith, to which all of us here are trying to live out today. All of us here have been doubted because of many other people who think about us. But we gotta come to realize the main purpose behind why we are a Catholic and why we are able to get to where we are today. That is through the guidance of God. We should never try to challenge the highest priest, because that is where all of us are going to fall apart if we try to challenge him into actually believing that he is Jesus. Because guess what? God is truly there for each and every one of us. He wants each and every one of us to be able to strive to come towards him. But when we try to challenge him too much, that is when God continues to question each and every one of us of our own challenges to which we have put forth towards God. And so today, God reminds each and every one of us to continue to defend our faith, to continue to have the courage to live forth our journey of faith, so that each and every one of us here can strive to continue to draw ourselves closer to God, as this is the ultimate destiny to which each and every one of us here wants to strive to head towards. And so as we conclude today's Catholic Daily Reflection, let us reflect upon our own life and how often do we try to challenge Jesus, and how often do we try to, before we even do anything, look back upon how we are doing in relationship with others, in relationship with God, and in relationship with ourselves. How often do we reflect upon how we act? Because that is where Jesus is trying to challenge each and every one of us here. And so all of us should never try to be irrational, but we should instead try to continue to follow the faith, because this is the calling to which God has had upon each and every one of us here throughout our journey of faith.